All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Rose, and welcome to my MPA oral exam. So, before we get started on the prompts, I wanted to introduce myself and tell you three things about me before we get started. I am a transformational leader. I would say that I definitely inspire and motivate everyone to embrace a change and also create an environment where everyone feels welcome and we want to grow and collaborate together. And this brings me to number two, which is faith and resilience. John 13:7, you may not know now, but later you'll understand why. It's definitely prevalent in not only my personal, but also my work. And just, when there's times you're uncertain, I promise it'll get better. And, you may not know now, but later you'll understand why everything is true to timing. And this brings me to adaptability. I'm definitely adaptable to any situation because, I always look at it as that I'm a sponge and I want to continue to keep growing and, learn everything that I can because it'll only help me later on. So, this brings me on to my favorite theorist, which is Kurt Lewin, because he talks about change management model, and this definitely deeply resonates with me, especially when it comes to organizational change. I think we'll see a lot of unfreezing, changing, and refreezing. And well, what is his impact on public administration, you may be asking? Well, Kurt Lewin, he talks about integral, addressing organization integrity, and then especially when it comes to bureaucracy system, he emphasized understanding groups dynamics with broader system and paving the way for more effective strategies. And I think his approach is very much alive and real today because when it comes to COVID, we saw the unfreezing, which is now we're asking for COVID policies, we're having to comply with regulations from the CDC, and then we see changes. Now we're asking for COVID vaccination policies, we're testing everyone, we're having COVID exemptions now. And now, as we're getting post pandemic, we're seeing the refreezing, which is solidifying everything. Well, when you're solidifying everything, we're wanting to make it a system where it's so easily assembled no matter what. It's in HR, it's in all the other departments, it's singing through. Well, now that we're in post pandemic, we're seeing the resend of the policies, and we're dealing with, again, that change all over again, but the unfreezing, the changing, and then the refreezing. And I think his model is very much real and alive when it comes to changes and bureaucracy because these strategies are here to help administrators approach where there are needs for balance, innovation, and stability when it comes to our stakeholder. And I think COVID is going to be one of those things where leadership needs to introduce these new procedures, communicate it well to everyone else in the transition, but also being ready for the operations and being ready for anyone who is resistant to change. Because again, we are human and we are in the business of humans, which is, we love our habits and rituals, and it takes 30 days to break a habit. And I think he addresses this very well in having to deal with resistance, but also being ready for those changes. So, going on to number two now. Now that we've talked about resisting, we need to talk about how are we going to motivate our employees. Well, I like to think of the Maslow's hierarchy theory of needs and also Hinsberg's two theory factor. And I really like their strategies because it talks about work environment and how are we going to align our beliefs in times of persistent but also create trust. Well, Maslow's hierarchy of these talks about job satisfaction and also job security, and we need to have these basic needs to ensure that people feel financial stability. They also feel, that there's a higher motivation in their own personal growth. And I think one way you can achieve this in any organization is by having a work pathway. And a good example is that employees are given very clear opportunities of growth, but also, it gives them the foundation to build on. And I think this is very consistent when it comes to wages, benefits, and are they meeting their minimum qualifications for their job? And where do they need to go for the next position? And how do they get there? And what do they need to have? And I think building that will help them build their potential, but also give an organization more value because they're putting the investment back into their employee. And this brings me on to now Hinsberg's two-factor theory. And what do I mean by it? Well, his theory talks about addressing hygiene factors, which is working conditions, policies, and also prevention of dissatisfaction. Well, how he brought what is his impact on public administration? Well, his is very similar, and it talks about increasing job satisfaction. Building those recognitions, having growth opportunities. And I think when coming back to the work pathway example, I think it brings integral training groups, having those skill building workshops, telling people, hey, you're hitting these marks, but this is where you need to improve. And let me tell you how to get there. And I think having these clear structures, having these trainings can help people motivate, address them. How are we going to offer them these promotions, but also keeping them competitive and helping them hit these milestones in their career path? And I think these are things that we need to address, especially with these frameworks, because it's helping the employee give foundation, but also having that higher level of need. And these programs and using these theories will help us demonstrate the organizational values and invest in ourselves as an organization, but also in the employee as well. And I do apologize. I sound very, very out of breath, but I promise, here we go. So, when it comes to key challenges in the next 5 years, what do I see? The Great Retirement. And what do I mean by this? Well, the CalPERS Classic membership. And COVID just scratched the first surface of this Great Retirement with the Golden Handshake. And I think, as we enter more and more in the next 5 years, it's going to be a lot of transfers, a lot of recruitment. There's going to be some high retention. We're going to have some gaps in knowledge because guess what? The person who had been knowledgeable in the last 25 years is about to walk out the door. And the way do we address this? With Lewin's change model. And I think he provided a very structural approach, which is the unfreezing, updating outdated policies, which is having strategic planning for succession plans. What are our mentorship programs? Finding those critical knowledges that we need to keep and have them ready in place. And the changing factor is going to be putting everyone to work, which is, let's pair someone who has been here for 25 years to mentor someone who's just entering the workplace. And I think pairing them together, providing that mentorship is going to help us create better foundation for when these individuals leave. And when it comes to the refreezing, we want to make sure that we're embedding these practices for the organizational cultures. We're making sure it's long-term sustainability. And this is where McGregor's theory Y is going to come in, because we want to ensure that when we're empowering these employees through leadership opportunities and helping them make decisions and making sure they're a part of it, we need to ensure that we're engaging them and making sure that they feel welcomed. And I think having this in your leadership and having Maslow's theory there, I think we're going to be able to see people adapt more to their work environment, be more effective, and also help bridge that knowledge gap that I talked about. And I think fostering collaboration and retaining talent is going to ensure that we are continually innovating the workforce. And I think this will answer the big question of the Great Retirement. How are we going to fill in these gaps? We're creating a succession plan. We're making sure that there's a contingency plan in place and that when someone walks out the door because they're ready for retirement, we have the next person ready in line to take on the place and to ensure that there is no gap. And we are not failing the younger generation that is coming in. We want to set them up for success.